of you guys know my story that I grew up in a small Georgia town of Virginia Highlands. It really was a small town. And my grandfather bought that house in 1920. So my whole family was there. My father commenced the drinking by the time I was a kid. Then I ran away to Haight-Ashbury. I went to the University of Georgia and then ran away to Haight-Ashbury to become a giant hippie. And anyway, after that, I spent almost 10 years on a rural commune. But by the late 70s, I had to come back here and take care of my sick parents. I was still a spiritual hippie though. I hadn't given up on that. I was still firmly on the time-honored path of taking blood or acid every third day. You had to wait a few days or you wouldn't get off. And I was supposed to be looking in on my grandmother's sisters, Dora and Hattie Mae Ewing, both born during the reign of Queen Victoria, but they were still alive in 1979. Yet here they still were, and they were still alive, and they were in the last of a series of Atlanta apartments that had begun in Buckhead before World War II out on Peachtree Road. Then they'd lived in Ansley Park in the 50s. They'd lived on Rosedale Road in Virginia Highland in the 60s. Each move, each apartment in search of cheaper rents before finally, inevitably, these 82-year-old women, sadly, they had to cross Ponce de Leon. They had to go south of Ponce. They had to take rooms in the North High Ridge apartments, right across the street, right across Highland from the Shady Rest Hotel. The Shady Rest, those words themselves causing Dora and Hattie Mae pain. It made them shake their heads at how far they had fallen in their one lifetime. North High Ridge at that time just beginning to go bohemian, with punk rockers moving in up and down the hall. My great aunts now answering their doors some morning to a green mohawked girl, the lead singer in a band, holding a box of still warm donuts from you know where. The punk girl inviting herself in, sitting in one of their beautiful wingback chairs, commenting on each of my aunt's Charles Dickens dolls on the coffee table. The dolls I had become so bored with since I was 10 years old. My great aunts basking in her interests. My great aunts rolling out their ancient tea cart with a silver service because this was a caller. This was company. Company had finally come. I asked around about the girls' band and I found out that they had actually been the opening act at CBGB's. And even though this was a source of grudging awe on my part, I still resented the punk girls' visits because it should have been me looking in on the elderly women who had been so good to me as a boy, taking me in on my sick days, reading me Charles Dickens or reciting Wordsworth, Dora going, "Under the spreading chestnut tree, the village smithy stands." I heard that over and over and over again. But now, I had become hobbled by my druggy spirituality. Their favorite nephew was too high on mushrooms or acid or whatever to drag his white ass over to their apartment and make polite conversation. I just could not do it. Plus, I resented punks because they resented hippies, the two tribes my aunts could not tell apart. And I still did not like that new Clash album, London Calling, the way they sneered about phony Beatlemania. What the hell? I sulked when my aunts told me how charming the punk girl was, how smart she was. And then I decided I had to try and break them up. I said, that girl is just using you for material. That girl is just gonna write thrash songs about you. Two old ladies live next door. Two old ladies live next door. They'll tell you how the papa owned a store. Two old ladies in the flat next door. You don't want that, do you? I asked my aunts. No, they said, no, heavens no. And so They stopped seeing the girl. They stopped letting her in. But how do we become the villain in our own story? I was so obsessed with my chemically induced Buddhism, I became blind to how good the pug girl was for my aunts and they for her. The girl's visits were so full of wonder, while my own look-ins were brief, torturous, void of conversation, since I was either tripping or wishing I was tripping. I would sit there with my aunt's green wallpaper dripping down the wall, their bath powder air closing in on me, too heavy to breathe, my reasons for leaving always rubbish. Hattie Mae stamping her cane, you just rush in and then you just rush out. And she was right. I never brought donuts. I never showed them how to spike your hair with egg whites. My great aunts had come in with Stephen Foster, and so what if they went out with Johnny Rotten? What was the big deal in that? And this whole episode is still a recurring anxiety dream. I can see Dora, and I can see Hattie Mae. They're still in their chairs at North High Ridge, still waiting on me. All this is an issue any therapist could help me with, except, like most men, I'm not seeing anyone. I'm not in analysis. The ants are long gone. They're long gone from this earth. The punk rock girl is now likely a great aunt herself, and CBGB's has become an upscale boutique. One Saturday.